Last season, we had David Young and Billy Fink as rookie phenoms. This year, we're hoping Thomas Coyle and Buford Kingman can come in and provide early, instant impacts on the squad. But what begs the question is, who is next up in the organization after these guys that we've already called up? And today's episode is going to be focused on getting an updated view as to who is next up. And the first guy we're going to talk about is Pedro Pon out in left field. If you're just looking at overall wise, he is easily the highest rated player that we still have left in the minors. And looking at his skill set here, it's really well rounded, just 60s across the board, a couple of things even reaching into the 70s. The low durability is a little bit of a concern at 56. It's not so low that it is a great cause for concern, but ultimately I think Pedro Pon is just a victim of the Pirates being a really good team now. I think under most normal circumstances, we would be having Pedro on the major league team this year. My general guideline is if somebody who has more of a well-rounded skill set has a lot of those ratings in the 60s, they're ready. And Pedro Pon is in that situation, as we see here. Here he gets a hold of a pitch. No doubt about it. Homer to kick off the ninth inning. Indiana is going to need more than that here. Our AAA squad in the ninth to come back from this game. So I'm not necessarily too focused on whether our minor league team is winning or losing. We're more focused on the prospects themselves. But Pedro Pon's skill set alone, I think, is deserving of a spot at the major league level. Like I said, it's just, I think the outfield's pretty competitive right now. Joe Adell is on an expiring contract, and so that could potentially free up a spot. We also know that Victor Robles was just signed, but he's maybe not a long-term player there, as Pons picks up an RBI here with that single. So it's not like there's never going to be an open for Pons. It's going to happen, and it's going to happen relatively soon. But right now, the outfield is just really, really competitive. In fact, Brian Reynolds isn't even playing in the outfield for us. He's our DH. We have 4 great outfielders, I think, on the Major League squad already. Between Kingman and Ponce, honestly, we could have made an argument either way. I brought up Kingman for his better defense right now, and also he's a bit older. He was going to be Rule 5 eligible after this season, I believe. So it was his time. But if Reynolds starts to drop down because he's older, if Joe Adell struggles, if Buford Kingman struggles, I can see Ponce being a solution as early as sometime this season in case of any of those things, because his skill set is there, and I wouldn't mind getting a little bit more of development if we can get a couple more ratings creeping up into the 70s by the time he is ready to hop up into the league. That just, gives him an edge in terms of him being an immediate impact once he does make that MLB debut. Second player on the docket today is Cristobal Velasquez. Usually in the second episode of every season, we take a look at the first-round pick from the previous year, and this is no different. Velasquez is a pitcher that I'm very excited about. A 69 overall right now. Nice. With 94 potential. This is a guy who has a skill set that we don't really have elsewhere on the team, and that's why I'm kind of higher on him than a lot of our pitchers. Everyone not named Pete Good. I'm higher on him than anyone else because of that stamina in the mid-90s. This is a guy that you could see once he's on top of his game and he's developed his per nines a bit. This is a guy you could see consistently getting into the 7th inning, maybe even into the 8th inning if he's having a good game here. which he's having a good start to against Chesapeake for sure. Getting him to chase on that changeup well outside. And speaking of chasing, Gomez goes down swinging. Like what I'm seeing here early from Velasquez. But having that unique skill set is certainly going to set you apart in this very crowded starting pitcher farm system that we've now gotten. He also has higher potential than a lot of the guys not named Pete Good in our farm system, which gives him another advantage, having that higher upside by the time these guys are getting into their arbitration years. It makes you, I think, more willing to pay those arbitration years because they're going to continue to get better and better, whereas some guys might be peaking around those arbitration years. But Velasquez is somebody I'm, like I said, very excited for. Probably not going to be the next pitcher up. That will likely end up being Pete Good, as that will bounce over the glove of third base there. Looked like it should have been a routine out. But instead, the leadoff man for Chesapeake reaches here top of the third. That's going to be down for a hit in center field. And the runner will score. So the first run allowed here by Velasquez is with the one out here, top of the third. J.R. Richmond got a big piece of this next pitch. So a little bit of a struggle for Velasquez here in the middle of the third inning. It all started with that one ball that looked like it should have been a routine ground out. Now, pitching clutch isn't a big concern with Velasquez, so I'm not too worried about innings like this one where all it takes is kind of one thing, and next thing you know, you're giving up a bunch of runs. I think that's not going to be him, I hope, at least. 1-2 pitch. Gets another strikeout on the board to end off the third inning. Not his best. And, of course, they're going to check his glove in his hands in the inning that he gave up 3 runs. That makes sense. End of the fourth now for Velasquez. He had a pretty good hold of his pitch count early on, but that third inning really got it up there for him. That's another thing about this high stamina is even when, there are a lot of these long at-bats, it takes 4 or 5 pitches per at-bat, he's still likely going to be able to get you at 6, even in those games, whereas sometimes you really worry about a guy after his 5th inning if he's not able to get some of these quick outs in there. I always love a pitcher that can give me a reliable 6 and has upside for more. It's one of the few weaknesses that we've had in our farm system and at our major league squad so far. It's not like the most important thing. That's why I haven't maybe necessarily prioritized it prior to Velasquez. But it's nice to have a guy that can set himself apart in that area as well. Left right over the middle this time for J.R. Richmond. In for a 2-out single here in the 5th. Up to 80 pitches now. Hit high and deep to left field. Handled easily by Bravo. And that's going to actually end the day. I just said he's a very reliable 6 innings. And ironically enough, he doesn't go 6 innings today. But he still gave me reasons to be excited. Before we go any further here into the video, I have to give a quick shout out to eSteffi for becoming a member on the channel. Thank you so much. I appreciate it a lot, and I hope you enjoy our members-only content that we will be releasing regularly on the channel. Appreciate the support. Let's get back into the episode. Next up, let's talk about Robinson Brown. I think he's the guy that a lot of people in the comment sections are most excited about upcoming, and for good reason. He has, speaking of a guy like Velasquez, who we just talked about having a little bit more of a unique skill set, he is definitely that high contact, high on base, high stealing kind of player. Has the fielding and the reaction to play center field, but does not really hit for any power at all and does not have a very good arm. Now, he came off a year where he only hit 250 at AAA last year, which just isn't good enough for a guy who his full selling point is contact only. If you're not providing any power, I want to see 300 hitting, really good on base as well, because that's the way you're going to get that stealing that he's so good at to be a relevant thing. And if you're not able to get on base, you're not able to steal a base. And this archetype is certainly risky. I've seen it work out really, really well. If you watched the Rockies franchise last year, I think Jason Lindsay comes to mind for this. He ended up being an awesome player for a division rival with this kind of skill set. But I'm really hoping we can get a bounce back year from Robinson Brown. With a player that has more kind of the highs and the lows, he's very much so defined strengths and defined weaknesses. I like to see those strengths be at least in the 70s before I consider bringing him up. And Robinson Brown actually is in the 70s on all of his strengths. However, it's not showing up in the production. Not only do you need the ratings to be in the spot that you want that to bring them up, but you also need to see the production. I'm not just going to bring somebody up. There are rare exceptions like an Albert Sweeney, who I thought honestly wasn't all that impressive in AAA, but then we just brought him up because he was kind of almost nearing his potential, and his ratings were just really, really good. And so I gave him the chance eventually, and everybody's going to get towards that. But I hope that's not ultimately what we decide on Robinson Brown. His contact ratings went down last year. I don't want to see that happen in back-to-back years at all. And he did not impress in the few games we watched him here today, unfortunately. So not off to a great start once again. And then the last guy I want to talk about is Pete Good, who is a very good pitcher for us and a lefty that we have in the rotation. Of course, in the offseason, we decided to get rid of Jesus Luzardo. I always saw Pete Good as Luzardo's replacement, and we got rid of Luzardo a year probably before I was planning on doing so. Pete Good's really a guy that I see coming up onto the team probably next year. His overall is in the low 70s. He's got really solid ratings across the board. Still, strikeouts per 9 is his weakness. It kind of always has been. But I don't see a big problem with it when we watch, and it comes into play right here to get out of the inning, chasing on a curveball here. But I think Pete Good's a very impressive pitcher and somebody we're not going to have to wait too long for. He's definitely the next man up. If Pedro Pon is the next man up at hitter, Pete Good is definitely the next man up at pitcher, and it's only a matter of time, because I feel like whenever we actually hop in and watch this guy play, he's doing really impressive things, and he's showing a strikeout upside that he doesn't quite show in simulation all the time. That might just be a nature a little bit of the slider set, of course, but not everybody always performs well when we hop in on these sliders. I will say for the most part, our pitchers do pretty well. We've seen some really good pitching. There's always some exceptions. A game where we tied the MLB record for home runs in a game comes to mind. It's not always going to be the case, but Pete Good has pretty consistently not only been good when we've hopped in and watched him, but I feel like every time we do, he's continuing to get better, and that's exactly what you're hoping for when I go through and do these yearly prospect check-ins. Is I want to see you be better than the last time I checked in on you. And for the most part, that's exactly what we're seeing from Pete Good, who has 4 scoreless innings pitched here, barely even allowed any offense at all against the opposition here on this rainy day. Best of all, his pitch count has also been in a really good spot. Nearly got an error there. That throw was quite high from third. 2-2 pitch here for good is going to be lifted to right, giving chase and gloving it for another scoreless inning pitched by Pete. Into the sixth now. This is driven deep into the gap. Going to get down for a hit. Get to see Pons play some left field a bit there. Nice job tracking that ball down. 0-2 for Nick. And swinging through it again. Pete Good adds another strikeout onto the board. 62 pitches in. This one's to third. The throw, this time too low. Also inaccurate. Not loving these throws here from Nunez. This time he does get here with an error. Now there's 2 runners on. This to left is going to be run down by Pons. 2 outs now on the board for Pete. Can he get out of the inning scot-free? Yes, he can with the slider. Another strikeout for Pete Good. He keeps our opponent off the board, and he gets to come out for a 7th inning. That's how impressive he's been. Ironic, I talked about the other pitcher being the one that can go deeper into ball games, and it's Pete Good coming out here for the 7th instead. He's got 73 stamina, which is pretty much on the low end from what I typically want. Like 75 plus is what I'm looking for. 73 is certainly good enough, as he's shown in this game, as he goes 7 innings of shutout baseball here in his spotlight performance. Is Pete Good ready now? Honestly, I think he might be. Unfortunately, kind of just with Pedro Pon, who are you replacing him with? I think our pitching rotation's looking really, really good right now. So even though this performance has me thinking Pete Good is certainly ready right now to make his MLB debut, I just think unless we get a struggling season from Coyle or Chandler or something else, he's going to have to wait just a little bit longer. But he is looking really, really good. And with that, the month of April is over here in Season 5. Just taking a quick look at some of these notifications, seeing who played well and who played poorly. Barack Corral really struggled, as did Sean Sullivan. Jorge Bravo did really well down at Double-A. Pedro Pon, who we saw hit a homer early on in this episode, did awesome. And Enrique Vina was great. And then lastly here, we get a update for Frank De La Rosa. The Pirates are 19-10 at the end of the month. We have started to get Emmanuel Clase onto the field a bit. He's 9 saved to 1 blown save so far. I think we'll certainly take that level of production. He's technically below a replacement level pitcher, though. Is it just because strikeouts per 9? I don't know. But I'd say he's doing pretty good with 9 saves to 1 blown save. I wouldn't say that's below your replacement level closer by any means. Jared Jones is off to a fantastic start to the season in his first 40 innings. Billy Fink is coming out swinging. I don't know why he's losing 3 power versus lefties. That seems very extreme, especially because he's hitting 9 homers. But some of these early season upgrades and downgrades. Jazz Chisholm's very likely to downgrade this year unless he's insane again, and he's off to a really good start for sure. But just he's been playing at an overall higher than his potential for the last 2 years now. David Yan, not the best start to the season. Victor Robles, not doing great to kick off the season after we gave him a 3-year deal in the offseason. Thomas Coyle, as a rookie, coming in 3.71 ERA, 109 whip in his first 26 innings. Really impressed us last episode with his debut. Joe Adell's playing really well. Triolo's playing solid. Sweeney's playing okay. Kingman, All right, Termar has gotten a little bit of run. One guy that we didn't talk about that is also very close is Robert Eckert to come in and play DH. I wanted to get to him. I just had other players that were maybe a little bit higher on the priority list to spotlight here today. We'll probably get some Robert Eckert gameplay in at some point this season, though. At 19-10, we are actually not in first place in the division right now, as the Brewers have gotten off to a really hot start. Jackson Churio leads that team. I mean, even with Adley Rutschman batting so poorly, they're off to this great start. They're getting great numbers from other players on their team, so we'll have to get some gameplay going against them. Unfortunately, we don't play them in May, so we won't get to see them until June at the earliest. But that's all I've got here for this episode, focusing in on some of our top prospects, most MLB-ready prospects here today. Won't take long for a lot of these guys to be able to make an impact on our Pirates team. But that's all I've got. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back soon, taking more looks at this Major League squad in the next one, and I'll see you then. Let's go Bucks.